Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Welcome, everybody. So glad you could join us tonight. This is one of my favorite shows that we have on Nightlight. It has been an honor to have Neon Twilight on Nightlight. It's Solaris BlueRaven has been somebody that I have watched for years, listened to for years. I don't want to make her seem too old, but she has been around for a very long time, and her wisdom and her knowledge is something to be admired, to be listened to paid attention to. She has, as most of you know, 2 shows on Freedom Slips Radio on, I think, Friday and Saturday nights. And she is the kind of person that will always, be able to give you good insight, good reason. Her wisdom comes not only from years of spiritual development, certainly, but also from being fascinated with and looking into just all of the mystical questions that all of us, have and often just have and don't investigate. She's investigated. She's looked into so much of the material that is out there. She's spoken to so many of the authors and the people that are putting material out there, so that to listen to her on any particular subject is to have an education in and of itself. So a while back, I talked her into doing a show on Nightlight once a month, and she decided that it would be fun, and it's more than fun for me. It's an education. So I want to welcome you all to Neon Twilight and to your hostess, Solaris BlueRaven.
Well, thank you, Barbara.
Hey,
It's a pleasure
Solaris.
to be here again. You look great. It's wonderful to connect with you. Our monthly gathering.
Yes, we do try to do it once a month. Schedules and weather and everything else seem to get in the way every now and then. But it is always such a pleasure to talk with you, because it's a pleasure to talk with somebody else that talks the same language I do. Not so much English, because you do, we talk English, but it's the spiritual, it's the metaphysical, it's interest in what's out there and where we're going and the spiritual energy that all of us are striving to expand and develop. And I don't think there's a topic I could suggest to you that you wouldn't have a mastery in being able to talk about it, which is such fun.
Well, thank you. I think likewise as well. Yeah, we do expand in a lot of different galactic libraries, don't we?
Yes, we do. There are actually there is that wonderful site. Now I was going to mention it, and I can't remember the exact name of it, but there's a site out there that is Ancient Wisdoms, and it has so much material on it if anybody's interested in looking into a lot of the mystical things that we talk about. And it's there's information out there on the internet, but you don't always know or trust the source. that is putting it out there. So it's such a joy to have you on the show, because I trust anything you say. I don't think that it comes, out of nowhere, and it makes it so much more fascinating to talk with you about a lot of these different topics. I know for a while we were talking about going into Manly P. Hall, and we kind of have veered off of him for a while, but we can always go back to him because his material is timeless.
Oh, it is.
Would
Yeah,
have
we
been
covered quite a few chapters actually with Secret Teachings of the Ages.
We did, and surprisingly, I did a show with someone who wrote a book called The Occult Elvis, and apparently Elvis Presley was very into Manly P. Hall as well.
Oh,
And
interesting.
and he had wanted to meet him, and at one point they just weren't able to. They were in the same town, but their schedules just didn't coincide. But Manly P. Hall sent over a signed copy of his Secrets of All the Ages to Elvis, and it was something that Elvis treasured for the rest of his life.
Oh, that's
So
wonderful.
yeah, I wasn't aware that Elvis was that into the mystical, but apparently he studied a great deal of biblical and mystical and meditation, and I did not realize that he was a healer.
I didn't either. My goodness. Wow.
He
Very
he
interesting.
apparently actually he healed a number of people. One of the things he did that was such fun, which was energy work, was he could make clouds go away. And but he, because he was into the martial arts, he was into meditation, he was into a lot of the things that, reading the occult Elvis was quite an education, and especially because he had interviews with the that there was a certain amount of foundational material there, and it's a good book. You might be interested in reading it, and I can give you the author's name because he's fascinating to talk to. Apparently,
yeah,
his mother
absolutely.
also had healing touch, and but because they were fundamentalists, it was not something you talked about, and during that time frame. Many people were stay away. But yeah,
That's
it was,
fascinating.
but that he was into the healing and the meditation and the mystical, and he often, of course, his favorite songs were, of course, the Gospels of the South, which I love listening to. So anyhow, he was reading the book, and the interviews with the people, brought me a whole new understanding of the character of Elvis, and it was fascinating stuff. But the topic that I have advertised that we really have to start out with, I always put in, I know where we're going to start, I just don't know where we're going to end up. Are the underwater stargates that are out there?
Access points, gateways, and I thought it would be a great topic.
Yeah, are the governments aware of them? It would seem that they should be.
Well, I would think so, especially anybody in the black technologies, exotic, classified departments would probably have an awareness of some of the anomalies underwater for sure. I know they give us bits and pieces of what they think are supposedly, some kind of exotic tech or UFO related visuals, but I'm not sure if those are actually engineered by us or something else. But yeah, I think it's very interesting. They're traversing, or they're capable of traversing for sure, in my opinion.
Well, I know there are UFOs that people see going into the water in many different areas. It would make sense to hide, places underwater where they're not going to be discovered, theoretically. And it just, I know that Mary Joyce talks about a lot of the different underground things that she has seen, and especially off the coast of California. My feeling is that, are you aware of sort of the area in the Pacific?
Malibu?
Yeah, that would make sense.
Are you talking about the Malibu? I know that was kind of deep a while back, but I do remember a lot of people looking into that. But yeah, there's some anomalies. I find that there's so much there, and then of course it gets sanitized through any type of Google search sometimes. Well, Mary Joyce wouldn't do that, and so if she does discover anything that looks anomalous, I'm sure it gets wiped out within 24 hours. I think she mentioned that with the objects or physical objects, right?
Oh, it does. I know. Quite a while ago, she was doing a lot of. She uses Google Earth a lot for a lot of her searching and looking, and she had found literally the signs of the remains of a town off of around the Antarctic, and as soon as she started talking about them, she put out the GPSs of them, and they were blurred. But she did take screenshots, so she has what was there, and then she could show you what the government or whoever did to blur it so that you can't see it. So there are
That's very interesting, and I find that they're cutting a lot of departments too. No, go ahead.
No, yeah, they are, and I think appropriately so.
No,
but with the dark with the dark government is not going anywhere with all of their different agencies and everything. And it does feel to me as though, I mean, I know there's something off Malibu. I know there's something off Non-Medal keeps coming up for me. And I know that there was somebody wrote a book on it was on Lemuria, I think, but in a part of the book, she was talking about Non-Medal was really created because that marked the source of parts of Lemuria that had gone down underwater. And I have a feeling that right off the coast of where Non-Medal is, there probably is a Stargate there.
Mm-hmm. Are you talking more towards the Pacific or what location?
Yeah, I'm in the Pacific generally. The Atlantic, well, of course, you have the in the middle of the Atlantic, it goes down. It goes really down far. So that would be a good place for one. But for some reason, I don't know, the Pacific seems to be more active for me. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree as well. Especially when I look at the Lemurian frequencies and association, energetically speaking, yeah, the Pacific seems to have more of that mutable energy where it can be, it's more exotic in my opinion, and definitely more in tune with traversing and underwater activity insofar as, being able to access points. I don't want to call them stargates per se, but I find that, yeah, there's definitely a navigation system there. In my opinion, I do think there's something around the Atlantic area as well, but it's not the same field, if you ask me. And then I'm always looking at, if we get out of the water for a microsecond and just look at the access points with the North and South Pole. I think we've covered that before, but the anomalies associated with traversing from point A to point B through those gateways or those access points, jump points, I can call them. That's definitely there. I mean, but also when I was saying that they've cut all these departments, but some of these departments are associated with atmospheric observation. And what I was discussing on my show last night is that sometimes these it's good to have a second pair affiliated with observation points, looking at these things aerial wise, right? So that is something to pay attention to, because who else is going to be there as a witness? Independent scientists, I think, should be keeping their eyes on the sky and the waters.
On the water, especially, yeah.
For sure.
There's so much
Yeah,
out there skywise these days with everybody being able to have their own personal drone to go up there and fly around. I mean, it's really hard these days to determine what's a UFO and what's space junk and what's the space station and what's people's personal drones. And I mean, it's so hard. I mean, the sky is so full of stuff. You can't really determine what is actually a UFO. I mean, they're all UFOs because a UFO is an unidentified flying object. But talking about an alien
Right.
vehicle, it's hard these days to tell because there's so much up there.
Right.
But I with you,
Well,
I agree with you that the poles seem to have a great deal of energetic connected to them, and especially too, I mean, the South Pole, especially according to Admiral Berg, anyhow. Do you put? You're familiar? Well, he swears that he visited Inner Earth. Now, do you think he actually did?
I've heard people trying to debunk all that data. And honestly, there's definitely something there exotic. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had all those projects associated with the military going and doing their own investigations to that location. So in my opinion, definitely engineering aspects of exotic technology were there, however you want to look at it. And to what level he saw it is a whole different phenomenon. But I do think he was able to access a certain area, I don't want to call it a gateway, where he was able to see more than the average bear. And I don't know if it was internal, like inner Earth, or just another configuration of space-time that he was able to eclipse, but definitely something unique, in my opinion. And of course, there's always this mystery associated with Antarctica to begin with, and we all know why. But I still say that there's so much going on above our heads that has been obfuscated that, nowadays you're going to see, in my opinion, less people observing UFOs. I think it's going to be more contained. And I find that this new administration is actually containing the anomalies in association with that. So if we do see anything exotic, it would probably be off-planet intercept, because these guys are going to keep the grip on everything here, in my opinion. I call it the Great Disappearing Act. I was mentioning this. I find that this year is going to be the Great Disappearing Act of things that we already know about being either even more cloaked, more hidden, more concealed, and vanishing, like sensitive data and all these exotic technologies we were familiar with that we kind of decoded. In my opinion, I think they're going to try and remove a lot of that and just make it vanish, or put it in a very, very black space where no one will ever have an idea of where it's located. That's just my impressions. I don't know what you get on that.
No, I think you're right. And I think that when the space fleet, the Space Force, was created, I think it was created so that it could be merged in with the secret space program without anybody knowing it.
That sounds about right.
So that he's created a front for the secret space program to work through, which is pretty clever, actually. I know that there are materials that people who come into power are given, for your eyes only type stuff. And I think that was clever. Now, I don't know, you don't hear of anything the space program is doing, and yet it must be doing something. And yet the armed services have, the rockets going up, and now they're taking passengers.
Yeah, you're talking about like Blue Origin and all that.
Yeah,
that's all commercial, but that's just kind of a low Earth orbit, not even low Earth orbit. I mean, that's a game show, if you ask me. But looking at Space Force, for example, obviously overseen by military, and also I don't know if CIA, how much influence they have, but nonetheless, you're looking at the exotic tech, and some of it that I've been interfaced with in the past, I'm sure is being utilized with their department now, which they never discussed before, but you'll never hear about it because, once again, that's an organization that's not going to talk about it. So I find that there is a lot of that going on with very, very black tech getting utilized now by their projects departments and their exotic departments. What's sad is that the mass collective will never have access to this data. They're never going to be able to really understand how it works, the complexity of it, and they'll be in the dark for the rest of their lives, in my opinion. I know it sounds kind of grim, but they're not going to share this with anybody. So whatever they start to discover and whatever breakthroughs they have, they will never, ever talk about. And I think it's always been that way with NASA too. I mean, we've seen that with the airbrushing and sanitization of photos, right? So none of this really changes. But my point is that I find through this administration, they're really putting the caps on every single area that was using exotic experimentation. And I know that. I mean, without question, I know that they're doing it. And I can tell by their satellites and some of the things they've been utilizing recently. So yeah, we'll see what they do next year or so, but it's that's what I'm looking at.
Well,
And
I
you can
think,
feel the energy. I don't know about you, but you can tell in the field. I can tell in the atmosphere.
yeah, I mean, everybody is on pins and needles. You would have thought things would have calmed down after the election, but they haven't. Everybody is nervous still, and it doesn't bode well, I don't think. I know that one of the things that has come out lately in it's who was it that did, the guy whose last name I can't pronounce, that was David Duchovny or whatever. He's got,
X-Files?
yeah. Well, on his show, he has a new show out that he's bringing forth information that has now been declassified, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot of the biological warfare we were dealing with before COVID ever hit. So that it's sort of like you take a look at what our government has been doing, and underground or behind closed doors or whatever, and it's frightening.
Plus, there's no accountability, Barbara. That's the weirdest part of it. They don't have any accountability for anything they do that damages anyone here on this realm, which I find concerning to some degree. I don't care if it's military or not. So that's happening.
Well, it does make you wonder, and I want to get back to the stargates, because I know in one of the remote viewing things that we did, we went into I think it was the South Pole. I'm not sure. I think it was, and at one point we came into a chamber that had all of these doorways with symbols on them that they weren't really doorways. They were portals, and people were going through them. And it's sort of like, if they're here and they're being utilized, who's using them? Is it us? Is it other races, other alien races? Is it, who is these? It feels to me as though the portals that are out there, the stargates that are out there that are being utilized, have never stopped working, have never stopped being used. So who's using them?
I would say those who have access, but also the frequency is that's the point. That's the way to navigate. So if you're calibrated to the field of the access point, you'd be able to go through. So you can remodulate the waves in the field. I find that some of us are naturally calibrated to be able to do that, whether we're in body or out, or physically biotech, biosuit is there. But I think that's happening. I find that they're infinite in a sense of they're always going to be there, but you have to know how to navigate through them. And I find that we are walking stargates. I think I mentioned that in one of my books, but it's true with how our bodies work and how we can harmonize the field. But especially when you're doing even the remote viewing like you're able to do. So yeah, it makes perfect sense. But I find that many beings probably wouldn't want to be here from off planet. Any intelligent design work, it would more be leaving access points to get out and maybe not return. I wouldn't want to come back here. That's just me. So I can't imagine anybody trying to get here from off planet. In a sense, there's no reason for it unless they're doing some kind of an intercept.
There was a number of years ago, there was a big flutter that the Stargate that was at Mount Shasta had closed down, and that whoever was there taking care of it was gone. And yet people still seem to be flocking to Mount Shasta. I think Mount Shasta
Hmm.
actually does have a Stargate, and the other place on that kind of same trajectory, Alaska has where the Black Pyramid is underground under a mountain. Are you familiar with that?
I've heard about that. Yeah, I've heard about it. Hmm.
It does to me. It seems as though there is a Stargate there as well.
So do you
But
think it's a Stargate or a vortex on these locations?
oh yeah, that's what I was going to ask
Because
you.
it sounds more like a vortex to me. But like I said, I haven't been to Mount Shasta, like really gone inside of it. I've only been outside of Mount Shasta
I've
traveling.
I've been in places where there were um, I would call them power centers.
Hmm.
Um, I wouldn't call them stargates. I call them power centers, where where I think some ley lines cross or whatever, where there is so much power that it draws in energy
Hmm.
from the surrounding area.
Right.
And
Kind of like a vortex. Yeah.
and I think the last time I was at a place where there was one, I saw people from all different time frames there. It was really quite unusual.
Hmm.
Horsing carriages, horsebacks, on foot,
Wow.
um,
Hmm.
and it felt as though it was pulling people in, and it wasn't like they were being sucked in. It was not something that was frightening or upsetting. It
Hmm.
was a draw to energetic fields,
Very
and
interesting.
so so power centers are around, vortexes are around, and they
Hmm.
don't suck you into nothingness. They're places of great power.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, they're amplifiers for sure. That's what you're describing. Almost sounds like a plasma portal or a plasma point. You're describing all the different fractals of imagery connected from different timelines, where it's like almost imprinting. I don't know. It sounds very interesting. That's pretty cool.
it's fascinating. It was
Hmm.
these people had bought this. Um, actually, it was a party being given to a man who had just been put on the Supreme Court of New York. He was a
Hmm.
judge, and
Wow.
so it was a party to celebrate that. So it was all just lawyers.
Hmm.
and and when they called me and asked me to do it, I said, you realize, of course, that technically what I'm doing is against the law. So if I'm arrested, you better be there to defend me. And he looked at me and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, every lawyer in the state is here, just about. Nobody could possibly prosecute you.
Wow.
And it's funny because a number of years later, like maybe 10 years later, um, I was involved in a lawsuit. And when the judge called us into chambers, I looked at him and I recognized him, and he looked at me and he just winked. And, you
Oh,
know,
that's funny.
I did not lose the suit.
Oh, good. That's kind of nice.
But it was a stupid suit. But it was a lawsuit nonetheless. And but but it was the judge's property. His driveway was a mile long,
Mm.
and the house was old, and he said we think it's haunted, and there were entities there, but they weren't bad entities. They were just there.
Hmm.
And so his wife said, "Now I don't want to send them into the light or anything. I just want to know, do we have the right names and everything?" And they did. And they lived, very in great harmony with the people that had built the house, who were still in the house. Um,
Wow.
but
Interesting.
it was they really it wasn't a matter of a haunting as a sharing of the energy, and
Hmm.
they worked with it, and it was really profound. Every now and then, they'd be warned about something, not imminent danger so much as just things that, they were brought to their attention that they needed to take care of, which was kind of fun.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was a great party. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But there was this power center there right outside the parking area for the house, and it was where there used to be a huge barn, and the barn at one time had been a post office. It had been a way station, and stagecoaches had come through there, and
Mm.
it was still happening. So
Oh,
it was
wow.
really it was a lot of fun to watch. It really
Mhm.
was.
Very
Um,
cool.
but oftentimes in crop circles, they're formed on areas that have that same magnetism of ley lines crossing and things like
Mhm.
that. So vortexes are different from stargates. I think people have to understand that there's all sorts of places where power is, that it isn't, sucking you in or drawing
Right.
your energy. It's a
Right.
great place to stand
Yeah,
and
amplifiers, basically amplification, just like a vortex would definitely amplify the energies in the area wherever it is, like a nice power spot. But sometimes they're inverted. I mean, sometimes it can be a regurgitated energy associated with the people that are there. So that if they're not clear or they're spinning their own debris out, then you have all that junk in the air, but they're not going to be teleported or transported anywhere through the vortexes. That doesn't happen. And in the crop circles, I think you've stood in a crop circle, haven't you?
yes, I have.
Yeah, so I mean, that's like almost like to me, I've never been in one, but it sounds like it's something completely just power you up and amplify your field, probably reboot you, right?
It Yeah, it was I think the best way to describe it, it's for the first thing that I noticed when I was standing in it was that the outside um sounds and energies and everything were muffled tremendously. So there was a quiet and a peacefulness inside the circle. Uh,
Nice.
there was you could smell ozone, which is what you smell after lightning strikes and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I had the same feeling inside the stone chambers that Patrick and I went and did the documentary on. But crop circles um, have an amazing power to them. If I've never seen, I know that there are people that go and meditate in them. I mean, there have to be,
Mhm.
but um, I've not talked to any actually. And when I was in the crop circle, there wasn't the opportunity to, lay down and take a nap type stuff. But from what I've talked to people who have had that opportunity, it's a wonderful, peaceful energy. And if you're meditating and if you're opening yourself up to messages and things like that, you do get them. So
Mhm.
it is a place of incredible power and peace.
Mhm.
And
Right.
so, um,
Wow. What you're describing almost sounds like a dome or a shield with the muffling and how it's buffering the energy. Then also, did you go in barefoot or did you have shoes on?
I had shoes on. I
You
had
did.
shoes
Did
on.
anybody take their shoes off? Because I would have liked to have felt it without shoes on. That's just
That
me.
that probably, you know how when you're in situations that you look back on and say, "Damn, why didn't I think of that?"
Mhm.
This was one of them.
Mm.
But the ground that it was on was very rocky. I mean, you could
Okay.
see the circle. You could see, you could see how the energy had. There was no amazing pattern to it, like the ones in England where you have all of these wonderful geometrics. But you could feel, you could see the whatever the crop was. You could see how it was bent. It wasn't broken. Um,
Mhm.
so that it was a genuine crop circle, but it wasn't conducive to taking your shoes off.
Okay.
Um, I mean, I wouldn't walk in one in my bare feet, but
Okay.
taking your shoes off and standing in one in your bare feet, I could see that would be something else. And
Mhm.
and it was the same feeling that, as I said, that I got in the stone chambers that we went into, and I never thought of taking my shoes off and standing in my bare feet there either.
Wow. That's
And I
interesting.
don't know why, because the floors were just dirt, pounded dirt,
Hmm.
so that and always clear. They didn't have, there wasn't a lot of old leaves or dead wood or anything there. So
Hmm.
it would have been very easy to stand in your bare feet. I never thought to do it.
That's interesting. Well, if you ever get a chance, who knows? I just think it would be interesting to feel the energetics coming up through the feet, the chakras in the feet, just to feel that, see what it feels like energetically and how the body adapts to it.
Well,
Very interesting.
absolutely. And, there's a book out there called Earthing that talks
Hmm.
about, reconnecting with the Earth Mother, walking with your bare feet on the ground, and
Hmm.
that we have isolated ourselves from the heartbeat of the Earth because of concrete and asphalt and wood and leather and everything. And yeah, standing with your bare feet on ground like that. I also have a new respect for the mounds and Cahokia and Monk's Mound and all those areas. And in those areas, you can take your shoes off and walk on the ground
Hmm.
and,
That sounds
and
good.
feel the energy.
Hmm.
Um, I know here in Tennessee, they have they found, gosh, 75,000 graves of little people. Um, I would love to not walk across the grave. No, maybe. It's I had a fascination a long time ago with a particular graveyard in New York where an ancestor of mine was buried and
Hmm.
for a while, and it was beautiful, and they had these gorgeous mausoleums, and it was, you know it was a park. It was a beautiful, beautiful park, and
Hmm.
it would have been a great place for a picnic.
Hmm. A lot of people do that in Mexico, other areas. Yeah, picnics on their ancestor's grave.
Well, it's just kind of like, I don't feel that there are spirits that are lurking around graveyards. I think the
No.
spirits have gone on to bigger and better things, but the 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 peacefulness is just remarkable. And I used to search out old graveyards, and I have a graveyard in my backyard,
Oh wow, that's
and
really interesting.
I do. It is. They go back to, I think there are 10 or 15, maybe more graves there,
Hmm.
and they go back to the 1700s. So, um, but I've
Cool.
never thought to go back there and walk around in my bare feet.
Well, you never know.
But I will
That-
as soon as it's cooler out.
yeah, I was gonna say it'd be nice to kind of just go in there and see what you find. That's so nice. The historical benchmark of that, he says in the 1700s. Yeah, there's always a nice energetic associated with some of those old cemeteries for sure. They're
Oh,
beautiful. Some of the gravestones are absolutely stunning. Yeah,
well, there's only,
really cool.
I think, two headstones we can actually even read the dates and names on. And one of them was my
Oh
ancestor.
wow,
So, uh, which,
isn't that
which
interesting how that happens?
I don't
That's
know.
not a coincidence. You can't make it up, Barbara, how that works, right?
No, you
What are the
can't. I mean,
chances? Honestly, there are
I
no
mean,
chances.
the man that is buried there, it was his sister that was married to my ancestor. So he's an ancestor by marriage. But
Wow, but still
yeah, no,
amazing.
I tease my son all the time that I have kin buried in the backyard. I'm more southern than he is.
It's so wild. Well, that's a good
But
omen. I think it's a really good thing.
oh, when the people here, when I said, we have a graveyard here, and they kind of said, "Does that upset you?" And I said, "No, I'm thrilled."
That's funny.
I
That's
I
nice.
just can't think of anything lovelier than to have, you know,
Hmm.
a piece of history that close to you. Um,
Oh,
but
right.
I want to get back to the portals, because obviously at this point in time they're hidden. They're not something that is common knowledge.
Mhm.
And yet I get the feeling that part of our government, some people know about them.
Oh,
They
I'm sure
can't.
they do. I mean, people in yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a certain group of people, though. I don't think it's everyone and their mother, and I certainly don't think it's anyone in a lot of these agencies. I think some of them are just completely compartmentalized. When it comes down to these types of exotic uh, points, access points, I don't really know if they have the maps, so to speak. In my opinion, I think they're all intersecting. So if they're not really understanding which access point is going to take them to another destination,
Well, that
like
makes
another location on the map,
that
not
makes
sure they
you
would get
wonder.
that. They may not have it all mapped up appropriately
But
with
that
that.
makes you wonder then what is the purpose of the tunnels that they're plowing from the East Coast to the West Coast? What's the purpose of that? If there are
You're talking
portals
about the
already,
underground.
yeah.
Right. Well, to me, I think that they're not really. I think back then when they started having these creating these underground facilities, I don't think they had capabilities of going through Stargate or access points. I don't think they understood the anomalies associated with an access point or a gateway. I think they're just now understanding that, after all these years. And I think that's a whole different breed of military and a whole different breed of exotic technologies and space programming. So what we've seen with the underground facilities, or we haven't really seen them, but is really just about surveillance and satellite systems, if you ask me, and exotic experimentation. If you hear a dog in the background, that's the neighbor's dog in my front yard barking. My apologies. But yeah, I mean,
Well, what?
sorry. She's
That's
can you
okay.
hear her?
Hey, listen, my cat sings to you on occasion, so that's part of life here. But
That's all right.
with these tunnels that they are, I think they have them all finished actually, but with these tunnels that they have that go deep, I don't understand. Um, in the case of earthquakes, where the plates are shifting, wouldn't that destroy the tunnels?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I agree. I think it would destroy the tunnels, and I think that that's not necessarily a wise thing is to keep everything underground to such a degree. But back in the day, I don't think they were that vulnerable. I think nowadays they could be a lot more vulnerable. So that's another aspect to look at. But if anybody was really understanding what we were dealing with here, we'd be living off planet by now, as I've said before. I think the final solution to the equation is still really reside off planet into a different
No,
space time,
no.
but that's a whole different end game. It
Yeah.
really is. But to live off planet and to wake up one day and know that you're on a whole different space time configuration and you're in another planet, an illusion of a
Well,
celestial body, I think that would be very interesting. And I think that's our objective. I think that's what we should have been doing a long time. I think the bunkers and everything yet. I don't think it's secure in any formula. I think there are a lot of problems with that.
well, I agree with you. And while living off planet um, would be fascinating, you don't know what you're buying into when you do that, though. Do you really?
Well, it
I
depends
mean,
on where you're going. I mean, yeah, but some of us know we kind of have this understanding that we understand where we're heading and we understand that that's the location we need to be and it works. That's just me. When you're remote viewing, you have a vibe or even just an understanding of what's going on and beyond this spectrum of here. I think that home is home, right? You kind of get that impression. You understand where you're supposed to be. I'm not saying everybody's like that, but I think there are quite a few who do. And here it's like, we don't really see much of this, Barbara. Everything's been obscured. I mean, when you think about it, we're really not seeing the full spectrum of this place here, what people call Earth in any formula. I mean, it's always been, deception 101 here. We've never been told the truth. And all of this layer upon layer, you talk about layers before, and the idea behind all of that going on, so many layers of deception. And where's the real construct here? Where's the source construct of the blueprint, right? So, it's I think right now this place is a mystery, to be honest. Until people are really seeing it for what it is, it will always be obfuscated. They won't know. It's like a mist.
yeah, and I just I do wonder a lot. It just seems that there are levels of humanity that knows so much more than we do as far as source and purpose and direction but purpose. And you have so many fiction writers that are coming so close to guessing appropriately what source and purpose was. No longer does it feel right that we evolved from an ape. I don't
Well,
buy
that
it.
was never correct, in my opinion, not in any formula. Like I
Yeah,
said, people have been lied to. They've been given the wrong database of information. So once again, you have not evolution of a mass collective, but almost inversion of their evolution,
yeah.
right? So that's a big problem until the big revealing happens. And quite honestly, you're not going to see it. That's my point, and that's what I was discussing early on, even with the access points and gateways. I mean, what I put out is accurate. I don't care if they like it or not, but I can tell you, they're never going to tell you guys. They're never going to tell the masses what's going on. And now it's going to be more and more contained and more, zipping their mouths and not saying a word. I feel sorry for the masses that they're not being able to see beyond the spectrum of here, because they really need to understand with a different lens where they are at and where they're heading, and how to get away from all this and how to traverse, right? That's the whole idea, is to be able to be a traveler, because we are travelers, cosmic travelers, like my
Oh,
book.
yeah.
So, that's really what it boils down to. Certainly don't need to be in a stasis of control here. That's not okay.
Yeah. Well, when you get right down to it, we have a spirit in us that goes lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. We are space travelers. We are time travelers. Absolutely. And yet in this body, in this physical body, this singular reality right now, I don't want to say we're trapped, because I don't think we're trapped. I don't feel trapped. I don't think you feel trapped. I think you
No.
feel restricted. But this is, for so many people, this is it. This is, beyond the here and the now, there is nothing. And
hmm
there is so much. And it's sort of like people don't understand this is an avatar. This is not me. Me is a spirit inside of this avatar for sure. But
hmm
and it's timeless, and it's eternal, and it's sort of like we're in a journey, but it's a journey, and this is only a part of that journey. This is not the total journey. It isn't, you leave home and you arrive someplace and that's it. This is a stepping stone. This is a place where we're here for a while, and then we are moving on. The spirit moves on. It goes forward. It evolves. Whatever. But physically speaking, I wouldn't mind taking my 40-year-old avatar someplace, but my 81-year-old avatar, I don't think is, be happy to. Maybe it would be. I don't know. But
Well, the whole idea, yeah, but you could interface with an avatar younger of yourself off planet and use that particular type of avatar. That's the whole idea with interfacing, and your collective, what you are, gets integrated. And it sounds like transhumanism, but it's not. But the idea behind that, yeah, you could easily do that. I'm talking real time. I'm not talking you have to die. I'm saying your biosuit. I'm saying you could traverse and actually be able to do that. And there are technologies to be able to do that. And I agree with you. But once again, we're in the wrong space-time configuration, which ages us rapidly. I mean, in my opinion, I think people are just, this is a place where people are here to age. And when you think about it, nobody should be working the way they've been working here on this realm. I find that a lot of the things that are going on here are enslavement related. The whole idea behind, no, nobody's stuck here, but it is contained right now. It's contained
yeah,
through secrecy and the mysteries. And you have to really be a deep diver to get into and beyond what this information and gnosis is about. And a lot of people aren't willing to do that. They don't even know how to get started, Barbara. And thank goodness, there are beings like us around. And I don't say that in arrogance. I'm just saying we're at least beacons of light here and there to help them and at least illuminate them to such a degree they can at least start to evolve, or at least look into a different area for exploration and finding information that resonates with them. But most people are lost here, and there's no support on that level when you think about it. I find that this place, like I said, there needs to be a huge revealing, and
yeah,
everything needs to be put on the table, data wise, all exotic tech, everything. It's not just for, you need to know, or classification, or specific agencies. Now, everything needs to be laid out for everybody here, right now. and get this movement going, energetically speaking. That's my
Well,
2 cents.
yeah, but every government would have a different take on that. I
For
mean,
sure. It's control.
yeah,
But the universe has the final word on a lot of this stuff too. And as long as people are here and following by the programming, that they're never going to get anywhere. That's my point, is that we think outside the spectrum of what their programs are about, but most people don't. But you evolve to the level of what you've been programmed to absorb. And when you think about it, these people aren't really going anywhere besides here, in my opinion. So that's another aspect of where do they go when they leave this realm? Well, how much have they learned? And to what degree
yeah.
are they going to be evolving? Are they seekers? Are they explorers? Are they travelers? Do they even want to travel? I think some might even be so earthbound and entangled here that they won't even want to traverse any galactic highway, or they might find themselves being frightened to even think about going beyond the spectrum of here. It's really interesting when you think about it.
Yeah, Patrick had a pretty good view on a next step, and he had it all outlined, and he said, "This is where I'm going when I die." And I said, "Okay."
It's funny.
It did not in any way, shape, or form uh, coincide with my belief system, but
Uh-huh.
he was firmly convinced, and I'm pretty sure that's where he went. So at least for a time.
Mhm.
But it's kind of like every now and then I get a hint of him being around, and
That's nice.
it's really kind of cool,
Uh-huh.
kind of like he's checking in to see if I have outraged any
Well,
of
he
his
must have
material.
lived you, or he must have given you an access point. Then he must have given you a way, almost a little stargate to go through if you choose to connect. Sounds like, if he's
Oh,
still kind of connecting in with you energetically, must be something
absolutely.
there. Has to be some kind of a trail,
I would
highway.
say so. I would say so.
Hmm.
He definitely didn't believe in a lot of stuff that I did, yet he saw me doing it, and he said, "I don't know what you're doing, but you're doing it well."
Oh,
Um,
that's cute.
no, he was a very cool man, but unusual,
Hmm.
as most brilliant people are, very unique and unusual.
Well, you did some great work with him, some excellent work with him.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's sort of like, okay, so now what's the next step? Where do I take it from here? And I'm beginning to get hints and whatever of what the next step is. And it's sort of like, okay, I think I've got it, but just let me tie up some loose ends first, and then we'll get on to this other material. And I figure I've got another 20, 30 years I can play with, so at least
And
hope.
also, yeah, you do. And also the idea behind, what do you want? I think it's the art of the manifestation aspect too, because you can do anything you want. So what exactly do you want to do? And that's that, in my opinion. I think they're giving you the reins on a lot of levels when it comes down to that. Um, Kind of your free will choice insofar as what you really want to do, what you want to focus on, what's calling, what's singing.
Yeah, well,
You
there's
know,
another book calling for sure.
okay.
So what about you? What's calling you? I mean, you're
Well, nothing, just off-planet intelligence. That's gonna be my next book and the star map associated, but, to me, it's just I'm anxious to kinda keep working with technologies I've been interfaced with from the past and getting beyond the spectrum of here. I'm very, very bored with this game here. I think we've had that discussion, but it just seems like there's no revealing going on. There's no truth being said, and everybody seems to be complacent here. And, once in a while they get shaken up a little bit with some kind of an earth change or something else that goes on. But when push comes to shove, I mean, where's that passion? Where's the drive? I don't see it. I really don't. I'm restless. I'm restless. Even if I'm older, I'm restless.
yeah, yeah. Now I can tap into the restlessness for sure. It's kind of like, okay, I think part of it is, okay, I want to put material out there, but for who, for why, for what?
Hmm.
And and it's and you put material out there. You write a book. You put it up on Amazon. It's there forever, as long as Amazon is there, of course. Um, but but there has to be a purpose. There has to. I mean, I did the deck of cards. I did the handbook that went with that. That's special. That's out there,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not done. I have more to do. I realize that. The radio show is ongoing,
Mm-hmm.
but um, I'm getting. How do I put it? When I started the radio show, I really had to beat the bushes to get people to come onto the show because they didn't know who I was or what I did or anything like that. And justifiably, it was hard to get people to come on the show at first.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have all sorts of people, asking to be part of the show and asking to get interviewed and stuff like that. And for a couple of years, I've tried to, anybody who really had something they wanted to say, I've been, okay, I'll give you the platform. And now I'm realizing that anybody can write a book, anybody can publish a book, and I'm getting to the point where I feel I need to be a lot more selective about who I
Mm-hmm.
pull onto the show.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of material out there that is just so far from even close to accurate that it's frightening.
Mm-hmm. Well, not everybody's an author. I mean, anybody can put a book together. That's correct. And nowadays they use the automated AI. So they're not even really writing, in my opinion. I can't verify that, but a lot of people I think are using that and cheating. And, they're not authentic authors, if you ask me, and they don't really have the information they should have, but that's just me. That's just the way I'm looking at it. So I can see things like that. I can definitely see that there are people out there that are just getting a book out I don't know why. I mean, I was driven to put my work out because I had to decode this data, but I can't speak for other people out there in the illusion of writing.
Well, in some cases, I do believe people sincerely believe in what they're writing.
Mm-hmm.
They're not trying to pull the wool over your eyes, and yet I get it doesn't resonate to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying they're lying. I'm just saying they're misinformed.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really want to be a part of promoting that misinformation.
Mm-hmm. It makes sense.
But unfortunately, until I book them and then read their book, I don't know that that's there.
Right.
So it's kind of like I mean I read 2 books a week now, and trying to get ahead of myself so that but the reality is I'm booked through I'm booked totally to the end of December.
Mm-hmm.
And before I start booking next year, I want to make sure that the people that I book sincerely have material that I want to help them promote.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when you're reading through a book and suddenly you come across something that you just know is not accurate,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't call a halt and pick up the phone and say, hey, you're really off target here. I mean, you can't do that.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So
I wouldn't interview them, but that's just me. I mean, that's if I look at their material and I know it's BS or it's just not something I resonate with, chances are I wouldn't interview them. But once again, I mean, they have a right to write about whatever they want to and write their opinions down. But sometimes these people, as you and I know, are channeling so-called things that I don't believe are in any way, shape, or form inaccurate description of a higher cosmic force field. Let's put it that way, or design. That's just me. Like I said, maybe we're critics, maybe we're, you know, snobs. I don't think
well,
so.
let me put it this way. I've been in this field for over 50 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the material that people have written about 40 years ago would have been golden. Today, it just doesn't fly.
Right.
But they truly believe in what they're writing. And what gets to me is I don't want to promote something that I know is inaccurate. But I don't want to call these people fakes because they're sincere.
Right.
I have backed out of a couple of interviews. I actually have. I called one of the publicists that gives me people all the time, and I said to her, "Have you read this book?" And she said, "Yeah, most of it." And I said, "Have you read all of this book?" And she said, "No." And I told her what they wrote about in the last chapter, and she said, "Are you kidding me?" And I said, "No, it's last chapter. Check it out." And she said, "Oh my God." I mean, and even she had to disengage from being the promoter of a book that had the material that was in the last chapter on. So I guess it's a matter of being more careful about who I put out there. But, for the most part, I've got a lot of authors that I just absolutely adore that you can write a book and you're welcome. Let's go. So got a lot of those good books out there too. There are a lot of very good books out there. And then, you can, I mean, there are many people that have written wonderful material that are no longer with us that you can't exactly have them on, but I may reread the book and do a show talking about the book and the material, even though the author isn't there to talk to or with.
Right.
That may be another direction I go. I don't know. It feels like there's a new direction.
Well, there's always a new direction. And I think that, but to me, it's always up, energy up and beyond here. Not necessarily, this situation here, but I'm just saying things will change rapidly, if you ask me.
They're going to. That's what I find is so exciting. It's you would have thought that things would be calmed down now a little bit, and they're not. They're getting tighter and tighter and tenser and tenser. So you kind of wonder what's happening, what's going to happen. And
sorry. It's my St. Bernard. I'm sorry. I'm going to mute for a microsecond. You can talk. Hold on. He's looking out the window. My apologies.
Does he have a kid that he wears around his neck in the wintertime?
No, but I should get him one. I think we had that discussion. I think he'd be adorable with one, for sure. He's a good boy.
Oh, St. Bernards are great.
My window, unfortunately, is in my window's right here next to the desk. And
well, I have
right there, but he's good.
Terrible. I have furniture adjusted so that the cat can sit on the back of the furniture and look out windows. So it's my furniture arrangement is cat approved, not necessarily person approved. and people
there you go. That's what's important, right?
Oh, people are still celebrating 4th of July here. So we have Nashville.
Oh no, fireworks or what?
The county I live in, fireworks are legal. And so when we get to the end of June, beginning of July, huge tents go up on either side of the main road out here that sell fireworks. And there's even a fireworks store that's open 24/7 just about, but all year round, and you can buy fireworks there. And the night of the 4th, it sounded like World War II, 3, 4, and 5 all at once. It was loud here like you wouldn't believe. I mean, somebody could have dropped a bomb and they wouldn't have noticed the explosion.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, it was loud.
Wow. Yeah, they don't have fireworks here. We ban everything only because of fire hazard here, you know.
Oh yeah,
So it's very quiet. It was very, very quiet.
not here. They're still shooting them off.
My goodness.
Well, you know, happily, I mean, there were a couple of places that had big explosions because of the fireworks. So,
Mm-hmm.
but happily, not so here. It was apparently Nashville does a beautiful job, but after this many 4th of Julys, I saw the rededication of New York City and the Statue of Liberty way back, and I went down to New York City, and they had the barges on the Hudson with all of the fireworks, and it was spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, I bet.
I think Frank Sinatra sang New York, New York.
Oh, wow.
Before he died.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it does go way back.
Well, yeah, but that's classic. You know, that sounds pretty cool.
It was very cool. And it was an adventure. It's something I'll always remember. But, you know, after you've seen something like that, I don't know, everything else just doesn't seem quite as big, quite as impactful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And frankly, to tell you the truth, I have no desire to sit outside in the humidity, in the bugs, and watch fireworks. Now, if I could sit someplace air conditioned and watch, that's a whole nother ball of wax. But when it gets to be like 105 during the day with the humidity way up there, it's not a pleasure to be outside. You have to be very young to enjoy it.
Yeah, that's very, very hot. I'm not a fan of that kind of heat in any form. Whoops. Sorry.
How do you know when it's thunder and when
background?
Yeah, how do you know when it's thunder and when it's the dog?
Well, yeah, he does sound a little like thunder, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he has that low growl. He's a talker. I have the other one sitting here right by me. He's being quiet. So, yeah, they're funny though. We did have a thunderstorm here. You would have appreciated that. We had a little bit of a thunder boom earlier.
I love thunder and lightning. One of the good points to moving to Nashville is we have wonderful thunder and lightning storms, just magnificent ones. And you know, the cattle, she hugs the floor and looks at me with her ears down, like, you know, is the ceiling coming down or what? I mean, sometimes it rattles the furniture. It's really just amazing. Oh. Well, the only bad thing is we do have great thunder and lightning storms, but quite often tornadoes are a part of them, which are not good. So,
right. Yeah. Well, knock wood, you don't get any more of those anytime soon, right?
Oh,
wrong season for them, right?
There is no season.
Okay.
They come when they feel like it, and they are very destructive and so destructive that, you know, the TV is suddenly will blast, you know, go to your safe room, your cell phone will do it. I mean, they warn you, you know, go to your safe place. So and I,
well, that's
you know,
good. At least you get an alert system going on. You know.
I think, well, yeah, but look what happened in Texas when they had.
Well, that's my point. Yeah,
a 30-foot wave coming down on top of you.
They didn't see it coming. That's my point, is that the National Weather Service, I don't think they were able to do an assessment properly. Now, you could say it was due to the cuts. We really don't know. But in my opinion, I think there was definitely something associated with that, because they did cut a lot of people. That could have been, I think they cut their personnel at nighttime. So that, I'm not sure what time that came in. But it sounds to me like it could have been avoided. And that's a shame if it was the case. But yeah, that's crazy. That's just crazy.
Do you think the weather was manipulated to cause that?
Well, it's possible. Although I think he's trying to put the brakes on geoengineering, but, you know, I think they're still going to use it. So who knows? It's highly possible it was an engineered. Sounds very, very strange to me. I mean, it's something that you just don't see normally.
Well, that's why,
you know, something like that.
When I heard about it, all I could think of was, no, that's not a natural event. Something caused it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I thought it was weird that the title was like they said mystic, and it was a Christian group, and I'm like, that doesn't go. I mean, no offense, but Christianity and mysticism are two different things. Mysticism is what I am into. Mysticism, occult, spirituality. I mean,
Yeah.
different realm. And when I think of Camp Mystic, that's not really a religious. It shouldn't be associated with Christianity. But that's just me. That was my one thing that stood out was why that name. In association with that group of people, it just didn't register. And I know that's just me, but those of us who are on that path, we see it differently, than it's
Well,
a
they
strange thing
said,
for them to label when they want to be quote unquote Christians.
yeah, but that camp has been there for like 50 years. It's been there a very long time.
Yeah, but isn't it weird? But
You,
still, is it
yeah,
associated with just religion? Because it's not mysticism. There's two different things between religion is an indoctrination program. Mysticism is way beyond the spectrum of that. So they shouldn't really call it Camp Mystic. It's not about mystics. And when I say mystic, I'm expecting like
yeah.
craft
Well,
practitioners
I
and
was
magicians.
tonight. They were saying that there is another buildup of water that is on
Oh,
its way
wow.
down the river, so to speak. But
Interesting.
I
That's
mean, my
amazing.
gosh,
Yeah, that's
inland. I mean,
where's it
that's
coming from?
uh, uh, that's it. Where did it come from? So,
Hmm.
so again, when things like that happen, I have to say, are they fooling with the weather again? Are they trying to do
It's highly
something? I
possible.
mean,
Well, that's what I mean by not having a second lens, because now all this is encapsulated in it's all being put in NASA's in control of a lot of this now, insofar as what the new administration has been doing. They're getting rid of the people who are independent witnesses or people who can do their assessments with the National Weather Service. That's an extra pair of lenses and eyes that we no longer have. So all we can do is go by what they say now, what NASA says, or whoever he's put in charge, which is a very big flag to me. Okay. So once again, they what Dr. God says is going to go, right? And once
yeah,
again, we all know how NASA, no offense, NASA, we all know how they exaggerate and they paintbrush things and airbrush and all that. And, we,
yeah,
so it is what it is. I mean, you'll never have the answers unless you are the one who's there witnessing it with your own spectrum and your own lens, if you ask me. And that's concerning to me. I've been doing a lot of analysis on these guys, and I'm like, now we need extra witnesses and people who are in between the spaces and shadowing them. And we're not getting that anymore. So yeah, anything goes. We don't know. And it's not an act of God. Sorry, kids. I know they want to blame it on some kind of 100-year flood or something. Sorry, I'm not buying that. Not after what I've seen.
I mean, a
So
100-year flood is one thing, but a 30-foot wave coming down that river is not a
yeah.
100-year flood.
Yeah, that's definitely something's afoot there. Then and it wasn't with a fissure or anything opening up, right? I mean, that's what it sounds like, but I don't know.
It wasn't a
I didn't
dam
do enough.
bursting.
Okay, so nothing like that. No earthquakes, right?
Uh-huh.
No earthquakes, yeah. So,
No.
yeah, I don't know, man. It's wild. It's really, really wild. It's unfortunate so many people are gone. It keeps climbing insofar as the
Well,
people that have been lost from that.
I mean, I think the saddest thing is that it hit a camp of children. I mean,
Mhm.
that's,
Yeah,
um,
and nobody gave them a heads up. That was in the middle of the night, if I'm not mistaken, right?
yeah, there was no heads up. I mean, here, there's warning all over the place with tornadoes.
Right.
Uh,
And
but
you can track those fairly easily too, right?
Oh, well, they can see where rotation is, but
Mhm.
tornadoes kind of jump around too. They don't, you know, have a track. There is a track, but then they'll lift and then they'll go down someplace else. So they are really hard to spot. But
Mhm.
I have to say the Weather Channel here does a magnificent job on, telling you exactly where the rotation is and, when to go to your safe space and when to not.
Mhm.
Um, and I usually have the TV in the living room on loud, and my safe space is a half bath in the middle of the house that the cat and I sit in,
Mhm.
and my cell phone, and just watching it. Since I moved here, I have to have probably 6 different weather spotters on my phone to be able to see what's
Wow,
coming. Um,
that's quite a bit.
I
My
will
goodness.
check one and then I'll check another, and it's when you know that the tornadoes are in the area, it helps to have, it helps to have that kind of information in the palm of your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Sorry.
can remember the first time it
Earrings.
happened. The cat and I were sitting in the bathroom, and it was my son on the phone. He said, it's headed straight for you. And I said, yep. And he said, well, are you in your safe room? And I said, yep.
Oh,
I mean, I leave the door of the bathroom open, so the cat can come and go. And if it really gets too close, I pull her in and close the door.
that's good.
But they're so destructive.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
but what that water did to that town, the houses, I mean, it just swept them right off their foundations. I mean, it was horrible.
Yeah, it was. And I think
But
it did come in at nighttime, if I'm not mistaken, which makes it even worse.
Yeah. But when you stop to think about it, we've had, when you think of weather or environmental calamities, the fires in California that we shouldn't have had,
Right.
the flood in Tennessee and states next to it there, in the mountains, they were just swept away by stuff. I mean, they're still trying to rebuild there. Look what Sandy did to New York City. I mean, these weather catastrophes are becoming more and more destructive. Look at Haiti, that tidal wave that hit Haiti. I swear to you, that was a man-made tidal wave.
Sure, I agree.
So
easy enough. I mean, any hurricane, anything can be geoengineered insofar as and steered, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we have the capabilities, and this is globally, not just I'm talking United States. So yeah.
Well, and look at
Earthquakes and everything
volcanoes.
else.
The Ring of Fire is starting to sputter up again. I mean, the climate is going crazy, but it's something that it does on a very regular cycle. It's just the cycle is so huge that none of us have ever seen it before.
So
well,
I think it's a combination of a lot of stuff. Yeah.
And man tinkering with it, absolutely.
Yeah, he's just adding fuel to the fire, so to speak.
Literally. Literally. So when you see that, and you just wonder why. I mean, I can understand trying to control weather to a degree. I'd like to see the deserts flowering again.
Well, look at Dubai. Dubai is a prime example of how they've been terraforming, so to speak. I mean, it looks beautiful, but it's been changed dramatically.
Well, they built islands, for heaven's sakes. I mean,
my goodness. I mean, it's wild. You think about it.
My son and his wife went to Dubai this last year.
Oh, well, that's right. Yeah.
And they said, it's like no place else they'd ever been.
No, it looks very pretty. It does.
It does. It looks beautiful. The thing about it, though, is there's no history connected to it, really. You go to France or England or Rome or a lot of the different places on this planet that go back centuries and centuries and centuries. Dubai doesn't. Dubai is brand new.
Yep. True. Yeah. It's like a mirage almost, when you think about it, what I would consider a mirage, right? In a sense.
I'm wondering, do they have the kind of storms that we have? I mean, those islands that they built there's no protection from tsunamis. There's no, I don't know that they have hurricanes there. I mean,
I don't think they do. I would be, I suspect they probably don't have to deal with a lot of that.
Yeah, they're inland, way inland. But it's just, it's kind of like, I don't know. The world is changing, and those of us that have been around a long time are just shaking our heads saying, oh my goodness.
Do Yeah, it's kind of becoming a rich man's toy from what I've seen. It's the billionaires doing their thing, creating what they want with their billions and trillions of dollars. And yeah, I mean, anything goes. And that's right down to engineering weather patterns or playing God with a little g and who knows what,
Well,
agendas are agendas. And not to sound like into the dark zone, but it is an interesting thing that eclipses this world.
I think one of the things that has bothered me is that people with a great deal of money are spending it in places that are so dangerous, it's ridiculous. When you look at that submersible that was going down to the Titanic, how it imploded and killed everyone aboard, because it was just a lark. Sure, we can throw this kind of money, for this kind of a thrill. And
Right.
then when they started to send people into space for a few minutes of weightlessness and stuff like that, just because they had a lot of money.
Well, that's going to go down. That's no pun intended, but that's only a matter of time before that implodes. Somebody's going to get taken out. I hate to say that, but honestly, it's only a matter of time.
That's exactly what I thought. It was like, oh my gosh, this is not scientific anything. This is rich people getting a thrill.
Right.
I mean, they should have never let a teenager go in that submersible. I talked to Charlie Pellegrino, who went down in the first submersible that went down to the Titanic. And he said he had spoken to that man that created the one that he was selling tickets to go down. And he said there's no way he would have stepped foot in that module. That it just wasn't safe. And sometimes money insulates you to the point where you don't realize that it won't protect you from an accident.
Yeah, if there's no oversight, it just depends on the engineering and what they're putting into it, the materials, insofar as if they're cutting corners, being extra cheap, even with their billions of dollars. And, it does happen. I mean, they make accidents happen insofar as just not paying attention during construction. I mean, it can happen to anybody, those industries.
Yeah. Do you remember a movie a long time ago, Logan's Run?
Oh, yeah. I love that movie. Yeah. Classic.
And how when you got to be 30, you had the chance to be renewed or reborn.
Right. Yep. That's
and they were just killing them all off.
Right.
I'm looking at wondering if some of the stuff that's going on today is getting close to that, where people
I wouldn't be surprised.
People who are trying to stay young forever are going in for therapies and treatments that appear to be safe, but aren't. And it does make one wonder. I'm thinking keeping the original equipment as much as you can, and not looking to be something you're not.
Well, they certainly get a lot of plastic surgery and all this other stuff. I mean, billions of dollars can buy an awful lot of upgrades, so to speak. But yeah, if you still have the same biosuit, unless you get reconfigured, and that's what I mean by this particular space-time configuration is not compatible with us in a sense of living longer than a duration of here. But it just has a lot to do with what's going on with our electromagnetic field, and in my opinion, the beyond gravity that's here, it doesn't work for us here. So yeah, but I do see that everybody's getting themselves upgraded with whatever they can do to make themselves look younger.
Well,
they look good
for now.
Yeah.
A lot of people I know get Botox, but Botox is poison.
Yeah, it's botulism, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's paralyzing or something like that. Yeah, I think it's foolishness. Yeah.
I always thought wrinkles, especially smile wrinkles, were good things to have. It means that you've had a good life. But you just, I don't know. There's vanity connected to it. I mean, let's face it. I color my hair. I don't have, actually the gray hair really isn't there, but it's an icky brown. So I color. But
Mhm.
as far as
Mhm.
other stuff, um, altering my body, I just don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. I
Mhm.
see people getting all sorts of surgery, and I had a friend a long time ago who was exceedingly heavy, and she had the surgery where everything was shrunk, and she has to eat by the teacup and teaspoon, and she did lose like 150 pounds, but she
Mhm.
looked gray. She didn't look healthy, and she didn't look good.
Mhm.
But she was skinnier, and she thought she was, I mean, I liked her however she was, whatever
Mhm.
was natural for her. But
Right.
she did it because of her health, I guess.
Well, yeah,
But
when you're it depends, and also people are very cruel sometimes with people who have weight issues. Ozempic is one of those too that's not necessarily healthy for you, but man, does it work. I mean, it works. I mean, people are losing weight like nobody's business with that one. So I think that's the alternative now versus the type of surgery you're describing for people. But yeah, I mean, I think that people have like peer pressure, unfortunately, especially if they're high profile in the media or whatever area it
yeah,
is. I think they just feel like they need to look perfect, and if they age, they have to have everything perfect and get rid of this wrinkle, get rid of that, and do this and do that, and after a while, it becomes a freak show. Because quite honestly, I think a prime example would be Bezos's new wife because she looked pretty when she was younger. I saw photos of her; she looked great. I was just talking about this, and she looked gorgeous. I mean, and then she got all this weird surgery, and now she looks like I don't know what. I'm like, why did you have to do that? I mean, it's none of my business, obviously. But my point is, why do they think they're not good enough or not pretty enough that they have to do all that? But I think it's a rich thing. I think they're just obsessed with having surgery. What was that comedian that comes to mind that's no longer alive? That lady. She used to have a ton of
Joan
plastic surgery.
Rivers,
The comedian. Yeah, remember her? So,
yeah.
they did it all the time, it was like routine for them out there.
Well, I
Wild.
just I have a white coat, thing. Doctors scare me. So
Mhm.
the
Oh.
thought, what if you make a mistake? I'm the only one that's going to really
Oh,
suffer from it.
right, yeah,
So,
that's true.
I mean,
They better not bet steady hand, steady hand. Arsenic and Old Lace comes to mind. Wasn't it that movie where he's
yes.
fixing him up and, Boris Karloff he mentions Boris Karloff or something. Oh my gosh,
No,
that
that
was so funny.
was something else. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
he was trying to
I mean, I had a hip replacement, but that's different. Nobody
Oh,
sees.
yeah, no. That's good. I mean, I've heard that with the knees, and it actually works really well. I hear a lot of good things about people getting knee replacements and, yeah, what you're describing too. So, no, that's something that has nothing to do with, this other stuff that they're doing.
No, the cosmetic stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I can see
Uh,
some mild work, like, maybe some really good facial peels or whatever, but I can't see this extreme stuff that they do. It just doesn't make sense to me. I think it will backfire after a while. As
I'm
far as I'm not sure if you have to keep it up, if it eventually I don't know how it works. I don't know enough about it, but
I knew someone that had a facelift, a
mhm.
total facelift, where they and pulled everything
Oh
up.
my
But
gosh. Yeah.
um, and after I think 7 years, she had to have it done again.
Mm.
And it's kind of like, that's massive surgery. That's
Yeah, that's no good.
no, no, no.
I
I have
mean,
enough
that's just ridiculous.
I have enough trouble with the original parts. I don't think I want to have.
Yeah, I mean, I can see if you were in like a really bad accident or something, I get that, but just to do it, no, no. I don't see that at all.
Yeah, no, my granddaughter had an accident when she was very young, and they had a plastic surgeon fix it, so she
Mhm,
has no
yeah.
scar. But that's minimal.
Mhm, right. Those
Um,
things like that are fine. Well, remember the back in the day, the kids used to get, I mean, even the young girls used to get breast implants in high school. I don't know if you knew about that. Maybe you probably do, but that was a big thing. And even in California, I mean, they grew up with all that. So it's nothing for them to keep working on that and getting more and more.
well, Dolly Parton how did she, at one point in time, they asked her if she was going to get reduction, and she said, "These girls have been with me for a very long time. I'm just going to keep them."
Oh, how funny. I thought
Yeah,
she did get a reduction, but I don't know. I don't pay much attention on
she
that.
may
But
have. I
yeah,
just,
I think they all get something after a while, but they all look great. I mean, there's some of them out there look really fabulous. I don't know what they're doing, but do you remember that movie Death Becomes Her is another one that's really good.
oh, yes.
Yeah.
I love that one. I love
But
that one.
that's classic too, and it comes down to vanity, and gotta look perfect. That was so funny.
Yeah. No, that was a very good movie.
Hmm. Well, we want to engineer ourselves to be healthy and fit, and but the obsession with the cosmetics, I don't get that part. I don't.
No.
It's kind
I
of
think,
bizarre.
eating, well, the thing is, who was it? My cleaning lady was talking about wanting to lose weight and everything. And I looked at her and I said, "How much water do you drink?" And she said, "Not a lot." And I said, "Well, if you drink enough water, you lose weight."
Hmm.
And she just looked at me and I said, "Weight Watchers. It's true. You drink the water, it flushes you out." But,
Yeah, I was gonna
she's
say
off.
that. I was thinking that detoxification. Yeah,
But other than
interesting.
that, but I think our time is just about up here. So why don't you let everybody
Wow.
know
Okay.
where you can be reached and
Very nice.
where your shows are? Hello?
Okay. You kind of broke up there, but I'm assuming you want everybody to know how to get in touch with me, right?
Yeah.
My website is nightshadowanomalydetectives.net or .com, and my shows are on Revolution Radio. Of course, Raven starts witching hour on Saturday nights, 12 midnight Eastern time, 9 p.m. Pacific, and on Friday night or Friday afternoon, I have Hyperspace Night Files, which is at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So, Studio A. And thank you very much, Barbara. Once again, a lovely conversation with you. I'm glad we were able to connect today.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can find me at barbaradulong.com. And this week coming up, I have a show on Monday, I have a show on Tuesday, and I do a free reading show on Thursday. So if any of you are interested in getting a free reading, we'll be streaming live on YouTube at 8 o'clock Central for 2 hours. So join us, hop in, get a freebie. And that said, thank you so much, Solaris, for again an amazing evening. And we will see everybody back here, hopefully, the last Sunday in July. Until then, good night, everybody.
Night.